area that is shown in the figure is the same as where they're planning to cultivate. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
What about, I have another question. So on the west side, it shows the 4x4 boxes, but it appears to be that there used to be plantings that continued all the way into the parcel next to it in the drawings. How does that play into the picture? I mean, it looks like the boxes are where they need to be to get the license, but it looks like the operation's outside the boxes. That's
Right.
what it looks like to me.
Parcel boundaries, which Chair Fall we've talked about before on previous ones, is a difficult situation in Trinity County. Based on the various parcel lines on Parcel Viewer, the actual boundaries could be various feet off.
Right.
I don't really have much to say about the previous development that was done there. Would you like to?
I could just add that if you look at attachment 2, I think it gives you a more clear picture of likely a more accurate plotting of the actual parcel boundaries versus the parcel boundaries that were prepared for this site map.
I see the difference.
I don't think that's maybe I need to word it differently. Looks like the grading in the photo looks like it goes well beyond the property line into the other parcel. That's what it looks like to me.
What photo are you referring to now?
So on attachment 1, on the west side, where those are all 4x4 boxes that are shown, and the yellow line is the setback from the parcel line, correct? Then the orange line is supposed to be the parcel, but in the photo, there's grading that appears to be for planting that goes all the way to the trees that are, according to this, well beyond the property line in the other parcel.
By photo, you mean the aerial imagery on figure 1?
On attachment 1, yes.
Attachment 1.
And then if I look at the one that you're looking at, it's harder to tell just because it's a higher distance up on that line if that's underneath, because the overlay kind of blurs it a bit. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just asking a question. Does it mean that the applicant saying, I'm not going to be going over there, I'm over here now, and this is what complies? Or is this saying, I don't know.
I would assume so. Someone from the consulting company is here tonight if you have anything to add. But where they're proposing their license to be is where we would assume that they're going to be, and then they'll receive annual inspections to verify that.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any further technical or clarifying questions? Do we have a presentation by the applicant or the agent?
Good evening, Lisa Wright with Flora. I don't know that I have a presentation. I think that the staff did a very thorough job of analyzing the situation and recommending for approval. I will note, and just to kind of reiterate, that parcel lines are sometimes off on aerial imagery, that through the inspection process, the county staff verifies the appropriate setbacks. If there was grading that had been done or disturbance prior to the licensing at the county level, then there's potentially, and I'd have to look at the CEQA document, but the CEQA document has been reviewed and approved. There's a mitigation measure for remediation of previously disturbed cultivation area or legacy cultivation that's included as a mitigation measure. So there's potential that they would need to seed, provide erosion control measures, et cetera, if they had disturbed outside of that area. But again, the parcel lines are sometimes off. High Palm is really bad. It'll be like 100 feet over from the what you see on the parcel viewer. But I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you might have in that regard. But I don't have more to add than staff added.
Do commissioners have any questions for Ms. Wright? Commissioner Sharp?
Yep. So you said that they do the parcel line assessments as part of the licensing process?
They come and make sure that you have the appropriate setbacks met from the best estimate we can make on the parcel boundaries.
So when they do that, do they have a surveyor come out and show you guys corners to where you can get an accurate?
Not necessarily, the county staff does that.
The county staff does the surveying?
They don't do the surveying, they do the assessment of the proposed cultivation area to make sure that appropriate setbacks have been met. Potentially, there could be markers there, but there's not additional surveying that's required. I think perhaps if there was more of a contention over where that parcel boundary was, perhaps by the other owner, but the other owner never, commented on this or had any objections, so.
So, thank you for that. I appreciate
Sure.
that information. I do have a question for staff then. So with what she said, how does the county, when they're, applying for a commercial license to grow, how do they establish the boundaries of this site then if a survey isn't required and only required if the person next door disagrees with the arbitrary line that somebody comes up with? Where are these numbers coming from?
We don't require surveys for license applications.
So these numbers could be wildly incorrect then. I mean, I know they're not because you have parcel view and you can get there, but my concern is that we're developing numbers on maps that say this place is this far and this is this far, and we're actually putting numbers on these that might not be accurate. So is there a need maybe to, as part of the licensing process, if they're going to have cultivations, especially in rural residential, that we are establishing accurate property lines prior to issuing the license?
Well,
I mean, it would have to come as a new policy and a new directive because we don't require surveys for building permits or any other type of ministerial-esque permits. So it would have to be a new direction.
But the cultivation license isn't ministerial. I understand the variances, but we're looking at maps and numbers that are supposed to be based on property lines that you guys can't accurately say that are
Well,
there.
are they based on property lines? The variance is from the cultivation area to the residence.
Correct.
So that's what you're measuring, and the property boundary is a little bit, kind of irrelevant, right? It's the code says from the cultivation area, which includes processing,
To the home
manufacturing,
site.
to the residence.
Yeah.
And you're doing that with the rangefinder, right?
Correct.
Right, okay.
Well, that makes sense.
Where I can
Does.
see, because a lot of the time vegetation will get in the way and I'll even I'll go from point A to point B and try to, go down the line and add those all up and get a on the ground measurement as best as I can. And then we'll use aerial imagery after
Mhm.
that.
But then but aside from the variance, I think what Commissioner Ellis was trying to get at was you want to make sure that the cultivation is actually on their property. And that's kind of what he was.
Right.
And
Surveys can
that's
be fairly
Yeah.
financially onerous, so the county historically hasn't required them unless there's specific situations. But again, like I said before, if that was something that the department wanted to take on, it would come as a policy directive and we would change
Well,
the process.
I'm pretty sure in the building code that you're required when you start a new operation, that you're required to actually show the property lines and establish them, at least a corner, and Trinity is notorious for being wildly inaccurate, which is the need for that, honestly, because a lot of people think that they're where they're at is their land. And if they look at a map, it says so. And then a surveyor comes out and finds a corner that is 100 feet different, which kind of lends to the need to be a little bit more, like I said, I think it's in the building code already. So if you were to start a new business and build, you would be required to establish some lines.
That is not my personal experience with building permits in Trinity County. Your point's well taken, and I think that, this would best be addressed in the current round of ordinance updates as a potential new requirement.
Sure. So maybe you could add, how do we do that? I guess I just want to.
So I think this is more discussion than a technical clarifying
Mhm.
question. But yeah, we can provide that input when the draft cannabis ordinance comes before us.
And I've taken a note of that to include it, so.
Cool.
Thank you.
This might make things a little easier for everybody if it's there, you know.
Okay, so if there are no more technical or clarifying questions, we will open the floor to public comment. Do we have any public comment in the room? Do we have any public comment on Zoom? Okay, seeing no public comment on Zoom, we will close public comment on this agenda item.
Someone not have their hand raised there?
That's what I saw as well.
Yeah. Mr. Keys?
There was a pop-up that's.
Is there a hand raised? Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
Hey, thank you. I know this might be slightly off topic. It follows the direction of the previous conversation, but this requirement for a survey, would that, for a property line survey, would that then be required of all building permits in Trinity County? And would that also be enacted retroactively? Because I just truly feel that that's an onerous process. And by using this Google map aerial imagery to come up with that as a concept for a future ordinance amendment, or maybe even a building code amendment, you know, I would imagine that that would make many, many, many parcels in Trinity County, you know, non-conforming. Essentially, I have personal experience from owning property in Trinity County when the Forest Service, who is my neighbor, adjusted lines back in maybe 2002. And my personal property gained about 15 feet of Forest Service land. And that just doubled itself over and over again, all the way to the Trinity County line, where it culminated in a parcel on Highway 36, actually losing their encroachment to their property. So if the lines were to be reassessed, it seems like it goes a little bit beyond the jurisdiction of the planning department. So I just really question that as a concept. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment on Zoom, public comment? No further public comment on Zoom. We'll close public comments and bring it back to the board for a motion. So do we have a motion from the board on agenda item 2? So I will make a motion for discussion purposes. I move that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution PC 2023-07, subject to Exhibit A, conditions of approval to reduce the 350-foot setback to approximately 145 feet from the residence on APN 025-530-033-000 and to approximately 235 feet to the residence on APN 025-530-034-000, attachment 8. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So motion by Chairman Fall, second by Commissioner Barrett. Any discussion? Okay, since this is a resolution, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Barrett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Fall, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0 to adopt Resolution PC 2023-07, subject to Exhibit A, conditions of approval.
We'll now move on to agenda item number 3, annual initial variance request, CCV 22-37. An application request to reduce the required 350-foot commercial cannabis cultivation setback from neighboring residential structures pursuant to Trinity County Code Section 17.43.050A, paragraph 8. The project site is located at 971 Top of the Grade, Douglas City, California, 96024. APN 025-530-030. Applicant B. Zhang. Planner Bella Headkey, continued from September 14th, 2023. Staff?
All right, so following a very similar staff report and review as the last project, this is an initial commercial cannabis variance request for license number 774. The applicant is B. Zong. I myself and Ida Tavicoli, environmental compliance specialist, prepared the staff report for you. The project is located at 971 Top of the Grade in Douglas City. The applicant is asking for a reduction of the 350-foot residential setback from 2 neighboring residences. The project would be developed up to 10,000 square feet of mature canopy. The parcel to the north of the project site is federal land / state highway. To the south is a licensed commercial cannabis operation. To the east is a single family residence, and to the west is a single family residence. Again, the staff report, they have the exact same zone. There are a couple parcels from each other. Follows the same pattern. I discussed and review 17.43 compliance, general plan and community plan compliance. And Ida prepared a narrative for secret compliance that ultimately determined that the project can appropriately tier off of our programmatic environmental impact report. I performed a site visit on August 18th to measure the distance using a handheld rangefinder from the closest cultivation elements to the residential structures, and to take pictures to present to the commissioners so you can see what the site actually looks like. And again, I sent out letters like in the previous variance to allow for a 2-week commenting period for the neighbors. And we didn't receive any input from the neighbors or the general public. Staff is able to justify all 5 required findings for the commercial cannabis variance. And I recommend that, given that, I recommend that the commissioners approve the project by adopting resolution PC 2023-08. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any technical or clarifying questions for Ms. Headkey? Thank you. Do we have any statement presentation by the applicant or agent?
Good evening, Lisa Wright again. I just concur with the findings of staff. I think they did a thorough job. It's been fully assessed. Both these applicants actually have undergone their secret review and everything. This is the last element before their county licensing. So I appreciate your consideration and support.
Thank you. And I want to compliment you guys on the staff report and the mapping. That was very, very helpful. You did a great job. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the agent? No? Okay. Do we have any public comment in the room? Any public comment on Zoom? Okay, having no public comment on Zoom, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for a motion. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Barrett,
I make a motion that we adopt resolution PC 2023-08, subject to Exhibit A, conditions of approval to reduce the 350-foot setback to approximately 190 feet from the residence on APN 025-530-031-000 and to approximately 305 feet to the residence on APN 025-530-029.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrett, second by Commissioner Ellis. Any discussion?
One question for, I was looking at the map. Oh, then this really has nothing to do with what we're discussing here, but it's top of the grade. I thought that would have been closer to Lewiston than Douglas City. No?
It's
What's the cutoff between Lewiston and Douglas City? Because it's like, wow, this was news to me. I thought that was no man's land.
it's
out
kind
there.
of in the middle, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
If you drive up there, it's a long way up there.
It is.
Okay, so having no further discussion, we will call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Ellis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Chair Fall, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0 to adopt Resolution PC 2023-OA, subject to Exhibit A, conditions of approval.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 4. Appeal of Planning Director's Decision P-23-09. An appeal of Cannabis Director's decision to deny a commercial cannabis license renewal application, CCL 208, for 480 Oak Ranch Road, Lewiston, APN 025-180-030-000. Appellant Stefan Monev, licensee Stefan Monev, Division Director Deep Plubani, continued from September 14th, 2023. Staff?
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. Drew Plabani, Cannabis Division Director. I'm going to give a brief overview of the staff report for project number P23-09. Essentially, on November 19th, 2020, an application for a commercial cannabis license was submitted to the Trinity County Planning Department. Subsequently, the Lewiston extension opt-out was codified on, sorry, I don't remember the dates.
June 15th,
Yep,
2021.
And so because of that, the language in that adopted ordinance states that in section 4, item 8, approved existing licensees within the Lewiston expansion cannabis opt-out area as of June 15th, 2021 that are compliant, active, and in good standing shall be allowed to continue to operate at their existing location. After confirmation from County Council and significant review of the project details, staff has determined that Ordinance 315-851 does not provide a pathway to licensure for existing applications that were not formally approved or licenses issued before the adoption of that opt-out area. And therefore, basically the backstory is that we received an Appendix C document for this project. And in looking into it, you can see in the backup that this project was initially, the application was denied by previous planning director Kim Hunter. And so because we had taken in the Appendix C document, I went ahead and prepared a secondary denial letter to express that we would not be processing their environmental document, and there was no path forward based on that, the adoption of the opt-out for that particular location. If you have any technical questions or clarifying questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do you have clarifying technical questions for Director Plabani? I have a couple. In the staff report, I'm just a little confused as usual. So project background, it says an application to transfer a commercial cannabis license from APN, whatever, was submitted. Was it for something else or to something else? I'm just,
So my understanding is that this was a period of time when you could say the program was capped out. And so a license from a different location was released. The form that was used during that period of time was called a release form, not a transfer form, but essentially transferring that license from a previous location to the APNs here on Oak Ranch Road, essentially, without reading off the APN numbers.
so an application to transfer a commercial cannabis license from APN. Is that? Because the APN, the 019-290-06, that's from the other location?
Correct.
Okay.
From the previous license location.
And it was there's something missing there, right? From APN 019-290-06 for something was submitted. Anyway,
An application to transfer the CCL was submitted, essentially,
okay.
following the essentially release form that we have on file. There was a new license application submitted on the same day for these APNs on Oak Ranch Road.
And attachment X, I couldn't find an attachment X.
Oh, that clearly is a typo. Let me see if I can find the appropriate attachment that we're referencing there.
And
It would actually be attachment 8, I believe, is what we're, that's the cancellation. No, sorry. There are a lot of attachments on this one.
appeal,
So that would be attachment 9.
no. And then, so the project application was denied by Kim Hunter, and Kim was the director of the planning department at that time. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
And Mr. Monev, so I see that we refunded him the application fee, and was that fee cashed, that refund?
Have not verified with the auditor's office as to whether or not that check was. Okay. So the applicant says that the check was never cashed.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from commissioners for Director Plabani? No? Okay. Do we have a statement or presentation by the appellant? You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes total, Madam Chair,
No, you have 10 minutes for yourself and then 10 minutes for your agent. And then later we'll have public comment and other people can speak then.
I am the agent. I'm Ben Maggot. I'm an attorney in town. Mr. Monev asked me to assist him with this matter. First of all, I want to thank the commission for its patience and indulgence. I know that we've continued this several times. And I know there was some discussion at the last hearing on the 14th of September about possibly the commission ruling on this matter without Mr. Monev having an opportunity to be heard. And quite honestly, I was disheartened to hear a neighbor of his make such a suggestion, but I was equally heartened to see that the commission did not follow that suggestion. And then Mr. Monev now has an opportunity to be heard tonight. When Mr. Monev came into my office to discuss the case, I originally was just going to tell him to, handle it on his own or find someone else to do it, because this is not really in my wheelhouse. I'm not too active in local politics. I'm ashamed to say, I think this is the first and only planning meeting I've been to. Maybe change that in the future. But after he told me a little more about this case, I decided to help him out because, quite honestly, it's, in my opinion, a pretty egregious injustice. Mr. Monev did everything that the county asked him to do. He spent an enormous amount of treasure and time trying to abide by all the county regulations to obtain the license. He applied for the license on the 19th of November, 2020. That license was transferred. There was just some discussion about the logistics of that transfer, but that license was transferred, I believe, about 10 days later on the 29th of November, 2020. Immediately after that, he began to prepare the property for the site. He commissioned engineering studies, rain catchment. I believe he installed a well. He retained the services of Flora, and he and Flora went back and forth many, many times over the course of what turned out to be years with county employees and county officials, again, trying to make sure that he was doing everything he needed to do to obtain the license. Of course, on the 15th of June, 2021, that urgency ordinance was passed. It was then extended July 30th, 2021, and then eventually codified and became permanent in, I think it was effective in June 17th, 2022. But even after those urgency ordinances passed, the county was still corresponding with Mr. Monev, with Flora, still telling them certain things that they needed to do to obtain this license. Mr. Monev received a letter on the 3rd of February, 2022, telling him that there were various things he needed to do to become CEQA compliant. Immediately after receiving that letter, he began to do those things. Of course, this is well after the urgency ordinances. He also received a letter on the 24th of May, 2022, essentially the same thing. Hey, here's various things you need to do still to become CEQA compliant. And I think it's important to know that on May 17th, so a week before he received that letter from County Council, this ordinance that codified these two opt-outs and essentially made them permanent was adopted. So it was, at that point, it should have been clear to everyone in the county that Mr. Monev had very little chance, regardless of what he did, to obtain this license. Yet these letters still went out, and he still acted on reliance of those letters and still acted with the understanding that there was still a chance of obtaining this license. Of course, the final denial came in March of this year, and here we are. And of course, I've looked over the ordinance 315-851, and there are quite a few things that I take exception with, but one thing that I found most striking is, I think it's section 4, the section that discusses the Lewiston opt-out, section 4, number 6, I believe, where there's this language that's discussing the boundaries, and it says the boundaries are logical and equitable. And respectfully, I don't think that's true at all. I think they're illogical and inequitable. What you have is this opt-out boundary that appears to me largely arbitrary. You have rural residential parcels, and then a whole bunch of ag parcels. And of course, there's already farms, marijuana farms that have been grandfathered into that opt-out. There's the winery there, there's the llama farm. Practically speaking, granting Mr. Monev a license that he expended so much time and treasure pursuing would have no real effect on the community on that opt-out area. There was another comment at the last hearing on the 14th of September. I think this might have been the same commenter who was urging the commission to rule without Mr. Monev having an opportunity to be heard. But it was something along the lines of, well, why aren't we ruling this is, quote, an open and shut case? Well, it might be open and shut for the folks who advocated for the opt-out and who are happy the opt-out has been codified and is now presumably permanent. But I can assure you it's not open and shut for Mr. Monev or his family who are here tonight. What it is devastating. They've spent their life savings doing everything that the county asked them to do, trying to obtain this license. They spent years doing this, and now it appears they have no recourse. So it's not open and shut to them. It is a life-altering situation. And what we're asking for is an exception. To be honest, we would like the commission to find that this is a unique situation, that Mr. Monev is uniquely situated, and to find an exception and grant him the license that he worked so hard to obtain. And I'm happy to answer questions, but I also know that Mr. Monev would like to address you directly.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Majid?
Yes, I do. If I may, Madam Chair. You said that license, just so I can get some more clarity, that license was transferred in November of 2020 from where?
My understanding, and Mr. Monev might be able to provide more details in this, but my understanding is that it was purchased. That was back when inactive licenses were still allowed to be purchased and transferred.
So he just went up to somebody, bought a license, and is that how you guys, I guess I'm asking staff at this point, is that how it works?
Mr. Monev, is that a question you can answer?
Well,
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm more curious to what staff knows how that works.
I can't speak directly to the process at that time. I was not employed by Trinity County.
That process doesn't exist anymore.
Following, and I don't know the exact date, but there, I believe, was a policy memo established by Director Hunter that limited the sort of criteria by which a transfer could be had or done.
Well, I think it was governed by the ordinance, which does allow transfer, but it doesn't allow transfer into opt-out areas. And this was not an opt-out area at the time. So do you know where APN 0929006 is? I guess that's the Pines. Thank you. Thank you.
So the license was in the Pines prior to that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Mr. Monev, you have 10 minutes if you'd like to speak.
Hello, everybody. Esteemed Commission and representative of.
Into the microphone, please.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Esteemed Commission, representative of Planning Department and Cannabis Division. My name is Stefan Monev, and I'm owner of 410 Oak Ranch Road, 480 Oak Ranch Road, and 240 Oak Ranch Road. It's 3 parcels, one next to each other. I want to start chronologically with the facts concerning all the injustice and goings which happened through all that process of actively seeking a cannabis license on my property in Lewiston. I had a dream, and that dream was about to live with my family in this wonderful country and to get a cannabis license so I can build up my dream farm. In March 2020, I found out the perfect place for that. Beautiful land, Act 10 zoning, privacy, great sun exposure, good source of water, and a place I can call home. Before I start any purchasing process, I went to the planning department so I can ask such a competent authority if that property match all the requirements to obtain a cannabis license. They told me that the property is outside the opt-out zone, so they assured me that I can get a license there easily. Based on that, I purchased the property. And here's where all my struggle starts. I purchased the property in March 2020, a year we're all going to remember because COVID-19 and the pandemic. While I was in escrow, the planning department posted a message to everyone who wants to apply for new cannabis application that there will be a deadline for applying in April 9th or something, not sure exactly the date, 2020. In that time, I still didn't receive my proof of ownership because I was still in escrow. So I still apply, but the planning department director, Kim Hunter, responded that she cannot accept that at that time the license, but when the process for new application reopened, she will put my application on top of the others. After that, the county closed due to COVID-19 pandemic for about 10 months or so. After a couple of months, the county came out with statement that said they will no longer accept new applications. The only way in that time to get a license was to purchase a CCL number from somebody and to transfer it on your property. So that's what I did. I purchased an active license in that time, and I had an agreement with the seller. If the county process and approve the transfer of the license on my property, I will pay it. And that's what's happened. The county approved the transfer of CCL 208 to my property on 30th of November 2020. So I paid the license to the seller with all my savings, and I even borrowed money from family and friends. I assume in that time there was a pressure to the county from outside factors. They do not accept the transfer and to not approve the license. But Mary Beth did approve the license, and I guess she did it because she knew that it wasn't justice what they was doing to me. And yeah, after a week from my transfer was approved, the county accepted a moratorium for an inactive license to not be transferable anymore. So that's how the county was trying to play me, I guess. They was ignoring me. And at least 2 months, I was going every morning in the front of the planning department, and I was trying to submit the transfer application. I was sending emails to them with no response until Mary Beth came back from her vacation and she decided to do something good and finally accept my transfer application of CCL 208 and to not play. And she decided to not play in county games, I guess. And I'm truly thankful for that. After the license was transferred to my property successfully, planning department and I asked for CCL number. I went to the planning department and I asked for CCL 208 status. Kim Hunter, in that time, director of planning department, was trying to convince me that my license is not transferable because it's inactive. And they already adopt a moratorium for that. So she was trying to tell me that I'm screwed. I show her the receipt of the transfer and she get pissed off because of that. And from that time, I've been ignored every time I went to the planning department or any email I sent to ask why my situation with the license is not moving forward. And I didn't receive any response. They was consciously delaying the time until they can make some changes in the ordinance so they can put me in position to not get that license. After more than a year back and forth with the planning department, the county adopted the urgent ordinance and my property became from non-opt-out to opt-out zone. The interesting fact here was that all that time of misleading from planning department, they still was asking me to do stuff so I can be more compliant with the ordinance. They asked me to do CEQA, which was giving me some hope that they was moving forward with my license. I did CEQA with David Skinner and we successfully submitted with the county. They sent us 2 times incomplete letters about Appendix C, once in February 22 and once in May 2022. All that time, from March 2020 to nowadays, I've been struggling with all those unfair decisions from the cannabis division. They was changing all the time personals. I felt like I'm a boxing bag for them. I experienced really tough times fighting for my rights. The only thing I was trying to do is to provide for my family like every father and husband will do. In tough times like now, my family's survival is endangered and I can't do nothing about it. All those injustices from the last 3.5 years makes a huge negative impact to me and my family. I feel like there's more hate than love going on in the world right now. And I really hope that the love and the justice will take a place in this matter. It's in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions for Mr. Monev? I guess not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question for Bablani. Is that all right?
Yeah, we have a question for staff.
So I have a staff question for you. While the process is going on for the opt-out, what is the requirement? I mean, the opt-out until it happens doesn't exist in your world, really, right? It's those parcels. And so what you would be doing would be going forward with the license until such a time as an opt-out would say that it's not available anymore. Is that correct? I mean, because you don't know what's an opt-out potential, and if you did, you don't know that it's going to be. So how does that make the operation of going through a license happen or not happen? How does it effectively for you? The date it was adopted, it became something you had to follow, correct?
Yeah, I think generally I agree with what
Am I mumbling?
with your perspective on it. We've had a lot of recent conversation about opt-outs and the proposed exclusionary zone language. And so what I can say is that, to my knowledge, there's no existing policy or guidance as it relates to the application for an opt-out and what that means in terms of sort of an opt-out application pending and a cultivation license application pending. And so in terms of my perspective on where we've landed is essentially that the language in the opt-out ordinance prohibits the cannabis division currently or after the adoption of that ordinance from issuing a license in an established opt-out. I think part of the confusion or sort of why this is so convoluted is that I believe the Kim Hunter policy memo changed the criteria for transferring. And so as Mr. Monev described to you, the license was purchased and transferred. The policy memo from Director Hunter essentially clarified that pending applications and or what I'm gathering from Mr. Monev was that somehow that project had been, that license had been deemed inactive. And so based on her policy memo, I believe the direction to staff under her guidance would have been to not process or not approve the transfer. So my understanding is that the transfer happened, but a new license was never issued to the new APNs.
So since a new license wasn't issued, it wasn't grandfathered in the opt-out area.
And when it's pending, is it considered inside that time frame, or is pending just pending until it's established and it's actually you actually release the license?
Unfortunately, ordinance number 315851 does not address that scenario.
What is it with buildings? Is it a pending license? And how does that work?
I can't
But
speak.
so if a
for the
building,
department.
well, maybe, okay, maybe that's not the right question then. But I mean, if buildings, if there's license on a building, if a permit's applied for until it's approved, it's not a license, right?
Correct.
Or a permit. It's not a
Um,
permit until it's approved. Just the application has to be approved before it actually becomes a license.
I mean, there's no license per se for a ministerial building permit, as I understand it, and there's no existing example that I'm aware of in Trinity County that's a parallel
Okay,
in terms of buildings and opt-outs.
okay,
Um,
let's hoping.
Okay, so Well, some of this I think we're going to get into with discussion. If there aren't any technical or clarifying questions, then we will open public comment. Do we have any public comment in the room? Now is your chance. You have 3 minutes each for public comment.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marina Marin, and mine and Stefan's story is starting a little bit earlier than 2020. So we come with all our saving and 2 years old kids to Trinity County to start growing and to be in the process legally like everybody. We wanted to get a license and everything. First, we rented a property and we went to planning department. That was back 2018. So that's when our story started. We went to planning department when they said that everything is perfect. We paid 1 year upfront for that property. Everything was perfect. 1 month later, when we started the process, they told us in our in planning department that license is revoked. And they didn't know, and they didn't have that information. So the first thing what happened to us is, and that's basically when everything, well, the problem starting, and that's when our ways went apart, me and Stefan. He kept trying on the Trinity County. All money that he ever made and he ever saved, he left on this Trinity County. He purchased the house that I don't think now that he would really stay and live here in this area if he's not able to grow or to live, because for our kid, it's not the best option anymore. I moved to Reading. He stayed, he been trying for a very long time, and all the information that we been getting back and forth, it was really not fair, you know, because they asked him all the time to do the stuff that he was doing, and he never really had a chance to get a license. And I just think that you should, guys, think about everything. He's young, like we would love to stay in the country. We would like to keep him, but this way, like really, like it's very tough time. I don't see that living there, and if he's not working there, he will be able to keep with his payments and everything. It's still like he needs like 30 years to pay off his house. And so without you guys taking in consideration to help him, you know, to get a license and everything, I mean, it's not gonna be good. So please think, and I would love like younger people to stay in the Trinity County. Like we lived here, we spend money here. We would like our kid to go here in the school and everything, but in this condition and for such a long time, you know, having different like information back and forth from the people right now in the planning department. This is the first time that the people from planning department are staying to work for such a long time. And they're really trying to do something. The situations that we've been having from 2018 is like in 2 days, we get 5 different information. With the Kim Hunter, with Mary Beth, with Marilyn Kenster, with Leslie and all those people, like all the time we were getting the different information, paying for the stuff, paying for the reports. And sorry, yeah, but you got my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the room?
Hi, my name is Dordy. I'm a licensed grower in Trinity County, and just I want to support Stefan because it's not fair that the county promised him license and at the end he didn't get it. So for me, just support, and you guys, please give him license. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I would like to say that there are certain people in this county which helped cannabis community enormously. There is a gentleman here on the right, Mitch. He helped me to obtain the license without any help from the consultants. There is Miss Lisa and her daughter, Anna, Jake, Mr. Adrian Keys, Justin. Without them, I just want to tell you guys, without them, we would be destroyed by hate towards cannabis growers. Stefan, if I would want to get a permit in Trinity County, I would go to the planning commission, planning department cannabis division and ask them, guys, what do I have to have? What do I have to do? What property you will like for me to get approved? This kind of things, those promises, sort of promises, were given to Mr. Monev when he came over to the planning department. At that time, it was Miss Kim Hunter. Just to let you guys know, she didn't know herself how to behave in multiple issues, because there was certain commissioners who attacked her publicly for the things, what she was doing or she was not doing. It's all in the previous videos, public meetings and stuff. In my opinion, if it was misleading from the county to give such an advice that, yeah, you can go and spend $1 million to buy a property, kind of attach yourself to this land for 30 years. And after that, oh, sorry, we cannot give you anything. This is, to me, it's ridiculous. I'm more than sure how it's gonna work out, because I've seen people here pleading for food for their kids and nothing was happening. It's maybe only my frustration. I feel, and a lot of cannabis community feel not wanted in this county. Without us doing anything negative, I'm making roads. When I have a dirt road to my property, I'm actually a resident of Lewiston. I was not voting for the opt-out. However, I have an overlay zone. After I received the license, my friend received the license, I got an overlay zone in the Mountain View Drive. Nobody knows what this overlay
Thank you.
is. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have other public comments?
Good evening again, Lisa Wright, Lewiston. Kind of what it feels like to me, underlying all this is really being misled. Someone made significant life-altering decisions based on trusting in what was being told to him by government officials who should have accurate, clear information. He was misled. Submitted an application in good faith. At the time, there was no prohibition from doing that. There was no carve-out area. A suitable parcel as advised by county staff. Yet he was misled. Later in the process, he submitted his transfer application. That was accepted. He paid his fees. He followed all of the rules. At that time, it was a ministerial process. This was prior to site-specific CEQA review. Check all the boxes, do everything, you would get your license. He was misled. 2 years later, almost, from his original, an urgency ordinance was codified that carved him out without any land use-based findings in fact, really, specific to his parcel, appropriately zoned. Broad swath of non-rural residential, ag. He's caught up in really is kind of a comedy of errors by staff, and it's not our current staff. So, I was hesitant to get up here and talk about against staff because I work very closely with our current staff. Previous staff, there were challenges. There's a lot of turnover. There wasn't clear direction, et cetera. But who suffered because of this? Mr. Monev and his family, his children. He was misled. So I ask you to look at the facts, certainly, but also consider you have the ability to make an exception to what maybe the rules are now, but they weren't the rules when he started this process or when he in good faith applied or when the county took his application money. So I'm asking you in good faith to show that to him, that he's not going to be misled, that was wrong, that he was treated that way. It was truly an injustice. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment in the room?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mitch. I'm resident of Lewiston. I've known Stefan for a long time and I'm very familiar with what he has been going through. 3 years ago, he bought his property based on the county assurances that he can get a license there. He spent enormous amount of money. After buying the property, I remember Stefan complaining to me that the county is not answering his emails, phone calls, and there is no one to help him with his license. This was going on for several months. Then the county passed an ordinance banning cultivation in the area where Stefan's property is located. After the new ordinance passed, the planning department was super quick to answer Stefan that he cannot get a license there anymore. It was obvious that Kim Hunter, the director of planning at that time, on purpose was slowing down Stefan's application so that the ban passes and he cannot get a license. The planning department under Kim Hunter failed most of the cultivators in Trinity County, including Stefan. Because of the negligence and carelessness of the planning department at that time, we are here today. Last, any neighbors' complaints or concerns, regardless of the ban in Lewiston, will be addressed by Stefan's CEQA document. There will not be any negative environmental or other impact on the adjacent parcels. That said, I urge the Planning Commission approve Stefan's appeal and give him green light to get his license after almost 4 years of stress. If this fails, I urge him to turn to litigation and to get reimbursed for his pain and suffering. Enough taxation without representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment in the room?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Kayman. I'm resident of Santa Rosa. I'm a good friend of Stefan Monev for a long time, probably 10 years. And I've been pretty close to his case, knowing whole history, how he started, how he bought the land, how he bought the house, and having the mortgage from the bank for 30 years, being able to pay that land is going to take a while because having no right to grow on that land is going to be such a hard time for him to get any funds from anywhere to pay his house and family house in the land. And my occupancy is a general contractor. I would like to come visit him, help him with building the greenhouses if you guys approved tonight what he's appealing for. And yeah, I'm here just for support to help him and be a part of his case, help with whatever I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment, public comment in the room? Any public comment on Zoom?
Melissa?
Hello?
We got you.
Okay, thank you. Melissa from Weaverville. Regarding Mr. Monev, I believe that he should be allowed the license he applied for back in November 2020, which was prior to the transfer moratorium and the Lewiston opt-out. The county had ample time to approve the transfer, and Kim Hunter was clearly in the wrong for initially denying this license, and the county is in the wrong to deny it now. Mr. Monev worked hard to become compliant and had all of his paperwork turned in prior to the establishment of the Lewiston opt-out. Not only was he compliant, but he has been very patient with the county. So please, I implore you to do the right thing and give this man his license. Thank you.
Bosco?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, commissioners. Have to say a couple words over here. Here to support Stefan Monev and all the story about it, behind it. Back in the days when Kim Hunter was the main official in the Trinity County, it was such a mess. And I can say that right now, county knows what they're doing, but then it was mess even for myself. I'm also the license owner or a license owner as well. And I know what we all passed through it, and especially people from the Eastern European community feeling like being hated in the area. That's how we all have this feeling. It's really been hard for us and, for them too. So I just want to say that Stefan, he deserves his license because he did everything possibly can with the paperwork and other regulations to get his license. He deserves 100%. And I want to support him in this way. Thank you so much and have a good to all.
Thank you.
Vladimir?
Hello, everyone. Hello, commissioners. My name is Vladimir Pavlovic, and I'm the resident of the Trinity County over the 7 years. I also own the license, and I really would love to support the Stefan. I've been there at that time here, and I know how was everything looking, how tough was, what kind of information we were getting from the county back and forth. So it was a really, really rough time for everyone. And just put yourself in his shoes. Imagine that you spend all your money based on the informations what you've been giving from the office. So he spent everything that he have. He chased his dreams. Unfortunately, he was misled, very bad informations, and I hope that you guys understand. So if you guys haven't been there at that time, knowing the situation, this is not the excuse for you not to make the right decision today. So please help Stefan, get him a license, and hopefully the whole family will be here with us in Trinity County, and we will make a brighter future for everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
Chair, Member of the Commission, Tom Belenko, Douglas City. I think this is an important question. I know that staff's hands were tied when they had to deny this. There are two things that I think set this question apart, though, and merit the consideration the commission is giving it. Number one is what other callers and speakers have mentioned is the reliance. It's one thing if somebody makes their own decision, said, I think I can do this. It's a whole nother thing if you go to a county official, the county official in charge of these questions, and ask them if what you're going to do, the money you're going to spend is worthwhile, and they say yes. When the other carve-outs were established, I think we were a little more careful about not getting people caught up who had invested substantial effort already. And I know the later carve-outs had a more sense of urgency to include they were considered urgency ordinances. And then the other consideration here is the land use and the zoning. I heard Commissioner Sharp say it earlier and talking about RR, and that is a perennial question, and it's a fair question. Where does this belong in RR? What is the future of RR? But this property is ag. I believe this is 3 parcels of ag 10. I'm not denying that it is in the carve-out, but I am saying that I think that carve-out was an overreach. This is ag on ag. This makes sense to have this here. I don't know what the commission can do given the status of the ordinance and what it says, but at the very least, I would hope you can make a recommendation to the board that maybe this specific case on this property should be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Brower?
Good evening, commissioners. I agree with the previous commenters that the time in question was a very chaotic moment. And there was a lot of policy that was really kind of shoot from the hip, and there was very little guidance from the Board of Supervisors or CAO at that time. And Tom Blanco is absolutely right that originally the opt-out zones all included a period of time where an applicant could hold a place in line with a water board permit for the cannabis order or an application for a license. And Tom was absolutely right. In the rush to get the Lewiston expansion zone approved, that was never considered. And perhaps this may be appropriate on those ag parcels. It does seem that staff has recognized this unique situation, and their hands are tied, as Tom said, but this does merit your consideration, and I agree that recommending to the Board of Supervisors that they make an exception in this case is definitely worth the time of the commission. And Mr. Monev is not the only one caught up in the mess of things from that time period. There are many others. He's just one of the few that have stuck with the process, and it really is intent on playing by the rules. I would think it's exactly what Trinity County wants to encourage. So please consider this carefully, and perhaps we can have some nuance to these complex matters. But thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Matt Jefferson.
Matt Jefferson, Coffee Creek Trinity Center. I just want to reiterate everything that everybody else has said, but we're in support of Mr. Monev receiving his license. And we ask you, please stand with this farmer and his family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Lutweiler.
Hi, thank you for allowing me some time to speak. I certainly can hear all the emotions surrounding this issue, but I think the one thing to keep in mind from the perspective of the residents is that while Mr. Monev was going about trying to obtain his licensing, the 65+% of residents in the area were also working closely with Kim Hunter to obtain the opt-out. Someone had mentioned that these two properties are actually ag properties, but what's not being mentioned here is that there are several other active cultivators in the area who are not on ag properties. They're on rural residential properties. And it's partially in response to the cumulative effects of these grows that are very concentrated in one small area, in one small valley, that the residents came together to try to put a limit on how much impact was happening in our neighborhood. And honestly, if you look at the wording in the ordinance that was finally codified and adopted, it says that no new licenses would be, sorry?
Please continue.
It says that no new licenses would be issued and no new transfers would be allowed, as of that ordinance, and that would in itself preclude anything that was pending from continuing. And I do agree that the planning department at that time was in a bit of disarray, so I can see how problems happened with conversation still continuing with Mr. Monev, and I'm sorry that happened. But as one of the residents who is part of this Lewiston expansion, we breathed a big sigh of relief that our neighborhood, our community wouldn't continue to be negatively impacted and have more cumulative effect happening in our neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional comments on Zoom?
Lori?
Laurie?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is Lori Wills. I reside in the Lewiston expansion opt-out area, and I was the previous speaker Mr. Majid is referring to at the last hearing. I was very much involved in the opt-out effort, and I can tell you that Mr. Manav did not even own the property when we started our effort. He closed on that property after we had been working months and months on our opt-out, collecting signatures. As Sue mentioned, we had a majority of signatures. We had submitted all of our petition and our supporting documentation to the Cannabis Division. And we asked and asked and asked to have our matter heard. And it was never set by the former director of cannabis. We had to finally take our request to our District 1 supervisor, and Keith Groves set our matter to be heard. One of the reasons our matter was considered for an urgency ordinance is because in our small, densely populated rural residential area, there were already 3 licensed grows. And then there were 6 to 7, this is Kim's numbers, 6 to 7 applications in the queue. And in addition, there was a couple of well-known illegal grows that the sheriff's office abated. So that's why it was an urgency ordinance. The board unanimously approved our expansion ordinance, the opt-out area, 3 consecutive times. Since then, I recently had an appeal of one of the grandfathered licensees on Coffin Road, which is right next to Mr. Manav's property. And then Crystal Bell also had an appeal on that particular farm. And boy, I just forgot my point on that. I'm so sorry. But anyways, we really want to make sure that this license is not reconsidered or approved. There was one other license that was going through the process similar to Mr. Manav, and that particular individual ended up suing the county and lost that court case. They ended up having a settlement, and that particular applicant did not receive a license in our opt-out area.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on Zoom? Okay, seeing no other comments on Zoom, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for a motion. Do we have a motion on agenda item number 4?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Sharp?
I motion that the staff recommends the planning commission make a motion to deny the appeal P-23-09, upholding the director's decision to deny the application for CCL 208 with a finding referenced in the staff report.
Motion by Commissioner Sharp. Do we have a second? I will second. Discussion.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Sharp.
One of the questions I did have going back to staff is the license that was originally transferred from the Pines still an active license? Does it even exist?
I would say no, it is not an active license at this point, but that was because it was purchased and attempted to be transferred and then halted by previous staff.
So the county approved the purchase of the license and then the license was revoked.
The county doesn't approve the purchase of a license per se, but the release form was received by the
They
county.
approved the transfer of the license.
Yes, effectively.
Correct. Okay. And then it was revoked after that,
That's my understanding.
based on the fact that there was no land to actually attach that license to.
I believe it was based on Kim Hunter's policy memo, as best as I can understand the corporate, series of events.
It all sounds like mud.
So I totally sympathize with Mr. Monev. I'd have to say I share the same frustration about changing staff and the restrictions that were imposed due to COVID. But, I'm a businesswoman too. I have a small business and I know I don't spend money until I have the final whatever I need in my hand. And so, you get told things by staff, and I would know at that time that the staff was changing and that they were in the middle of a lot of different things. And so I would have definitely made sure I had that black and white piece of paper that I needed before I spent a lot of money. And so while I sympathize, I look at the staff report where it says, after research and confirmation from county council, staff has determined that it does not provide a pathway for licensure. I look at attachment 13 where the board of supervisors and the county council directed staff to return the application in July of 2021. I see Ms. Hunter, who was at the time the director of planning, her denial of the transfer, the returning the application, I'm sorry. And I just think that while it's totally unfair, that the planning commission is obligated to follow the county council and deny the appeal. That's my personal opinion.
If I may.
Commissioner Barrett.
I appreciate your points and I agree with you, but Mr. Monev has been punished because of county's advice. And it is wrong on all levels to deny him his ability to proceed with this when he has legitimately jumped through all the hoops. We have clearly seen the communication, the money he spent on county staff's advice. I understand that Ms. Hunter is no longer part of this organization, but this is zoned agricultural. It was bought before the carve out, before the opt out, the license was transferred. The goalpost has been moved on him and I cannot get behind it. There is no possible way with the information we have in front of us to fall back and say, oh, it's an opt-out now. Well, it wasn't when he bought it. It wasn't when he spent all the money. It wasn't when the county communicated it with him for years, telling him what he needed to do to expedite the process, and then to unceremoniously pull the rug out from underneath him with his dreams. There is no possible way to vote any other way than to uphold the appellant's request.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Sharp.
I do agree with Mr. Barrett that this does seem misleading is the word that's been used, at best. But you can, if you take a look back and I was here during this time, I was actually on this commission. At that time you have two different, processes happening simultaneously. One, an opt-out, one, a person trying to obtain a license. There's going to be a winner and a loser in that. There's no way around it. And those two things were happening at the same exact time. You know, it is not the county's job to give legal advice or financial advice. Whether they did it or not, it's not their job and they're not supposed to do it. If you're taking it from them, I would suggest that you do your homework. The fact that this is an annual license leads anybody that's going to get into this business to they should understand that this is annual. That means that next year you may not get a license. That's the whole reason it's an annual license. There's a huge risk involved in that inherently, even if under best case situations. And this certainly isn't one of them. There was two things happening all at once. There was going to be winners and losers in that opt-out. And unfortunately for this gentleman, he was on the losing side of that. And I do feel for the investment. I feel for the fact that you didn't get it your way. But the folks that went for the opt-out did. And again, there's winners and losers in opt-outs. And you know, it is unfortunate, but I don't see how we can approve something that has been clearly opted out.
Sorry, but public comment is closed. I apologize. Commissioner Barrett.
I actually agree with Commissioner Sharp with his points, but the rules changed on Mr. Monev after he had started the game. He had purchased the property. He had applied for an application. He had been told by the county to proceed, and in good faith, he paid his money, which the county did take. Now, they did later refund him. He did not cash it, but it's not fair to say, while I agree with your point and the way you're putting it, it's not fair to put a blanket on this situation, because it is a unique situation. And just like one of the speakers mentioned, there should be an exception. And I'm not saying there should always be an exception. We have certainly denied applications, but this situation right here is extremely unique. The paperwork and the information we have in front of it paints a very clear picture. And while I agree with you that you shouldn't go to county staff for legal representation or advice, it's pretty clear to me that the county gave him erroneous information. And I don't want to say it I don't know how else to say it except how I'm going to say it, is they stonewalled him with anticipation for this carve out. I think his application was put in a stalled position. And unfortunately, here he is in front of us today, 4 years later.
I don't think you're wrong in saying that. And that's, I think, probably intentional. I mean, when you have an area that is, you've got people applying for an opt-out, you got people applying for a license. If I'm in charge trying to approve that and figure out how this is going to lay out, I'm pumping the brakes on everybody until I find out, is this going to really be an opt-out or is it? If it wouldn't have become an opt-out, then that license would have been in position to move forward. Because it did become one, the license then became null and void. Somebody was going to lose in that situation and staff knew it. And they probably did make the right call in saying, we're going to stay all this until this stuff shuffles out. And the opt-out won out.
My point that, you know, with that level of uncertainty, why would you spend a lot of money?
You wouldn't.
But
Okay, so other commissioner comments, discussion?
I think a lot of it is a bummer to spend money like that. But one of the things is that there's actually an acknowledgement of maintaining existing site conditions that says you're not going to do anything. So if you're doing those things during that time, you're taking a risk that definitely is a big risk. That would be like building a building without a permit and then hoping it was going to come back. And that's unfortunate, but basically the county told you to be careful, don't do anything until you're approved. And it's signed by Stefan Monev. It's in your attachments right here. It says, as a property owner, I hereby acknowledge that until final approval of the above application by the County of Trinity, no work shall, such as grading, site development, infrastructure placement, tree removal, construction, trenching, operations, or activities requested in this application will be allowed. I understand that if the project site is altered prior to project approval, The review of the project by the county will be more difficult and potentially expensive, and that additional mitigation measures and/or conditions of approval may be imposed. Further, unauthorized work may cause enforcements by other agencies and/or denial of the application. That, unfortunately, you signed that and said that you weren't going to do anything until the license was granted. So even under those conditions, and I do empathize, believe me, I do. Under those conditions, you were taking a risk as soon as you put a blade on the dirt. As soon as you did that, any money that you were spending was, well, I'm not saying he did. I'm saying but he has a whole list of expenses of things that he.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but public comment is
There's a
closed.
list of expenses that total of $28,380 that are all things that had to be done.
That was for CEQA. We understand that.
Okay.
But that was also,
That's part of the, so it's part of the process though. Okay, well, I'm just saying that.
sorry, we're not going to argue with the audience.
So you're saying that nothing has been done?
Cool, so nothing out.
Okay, so we have further discussion among the commissioners. Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, just to point to Commissioner Ellis's reference there, that was signed on June 25th of 2020. That was a full year in advance before the opt-out even came into effect. So that signature of good faith shows
Right.
he was into this process a full year before the opt-out. How long should a business wait for a county to get their act together to allow him to proceed to provide for his family?
Till he got his
A bummer.
license. I mean,
Well,
That's, yeah, I
That's
I
the point,
agree.
until you get your license. Any process through any county, through any agency, you know this, Rory,
Yep.
takes years.
sure.
You know, you plan a power line somewhere, it's gonna be 5-10 years out, maybe if you can get through all the attorneys before you get a permit.
Sure.
You're not gonna drop a pole, cut a tree, send out a line crew. You're not gonna even purchase property until all the
Agreed.
litigation is done.
Agreed.
So we all wait a very long time for all counties.
We do, but this county has a record of mismanagement of the cannabis industry.
No doubt.
And the letter showing almost a year previous to the opt-out should be a letter of credit to Mr. Monev as opposed to admonishing him. And I don't take it that you admonished him. I understand you read the document verbatim, but there has to be a line in the sand. And I understand the line in the sand is July 30th of 2021 when the opt-out was signed and into effect. But there has to be consideration for people who came into this project a full year in advance. There has to be. In good, clean conscience, there has to be. I cannot get behind someone who has been in the project and has tried and is zoned in the correct area. It is agriculture. Cannabis is agriculture. It's I know the location of the property. It's a quiet dirt road. It's removed from anything else. He has bought the neighboring property to it. There has to be a point where we can't punish the county staff that aren't here anymore, but we have to see that bad players were involved with this, and through no fault of his own, including pursuing a CEQA, getting granted a CEQA, successfully submitted. There's no way. I think it's just morally wrong to say no. Personal opinion.
any other discussion by commissioners? So a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Fall, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Ellis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrett, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you. I have 3 for the recommendation, the staff recommendation to deny the motion, 1 abstain and 1 no.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
We will move on to, do we need a break? Guys, okay?
Yeah, that would be good. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5, I don't need long.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
See you in a couple months. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. We will resume our regular planning commission meeting of October 12th, 2023 at 8:16 with agenda item number 5, appeal of planning director's decision P 2319, an appeal of cannabis director's decision to approve a commercial cannabis license application, CCL 771, for 10381 Ruth Xenia Road, Hettenshaw, California. Appellant Philip Gilman. Applicant Severin Stoyanov, Smoking Green Valley LLC. Assessor parcel 020-510-020-000. Staff?
Good evening again, Commissioners. Drew Plabani, Cannabis Division Director. You should have two separate items, essentially a staff report and a memo dated October 10th for this project. And item number 5, the memo dated October 10th is a memorandum received from CDFW as it relates to a multi-agency inspection performed between Trinity County Cannabis Division staff and CDFW staff to visit this site and look into the reasons for appeal. I will give a brief overview of the staff report. Essentially, the application and CEQA document for this CCL, which is 771, was approved on June 23rd, noticed in the paper and scheduled for license issuance on or after July 12th. On July 11th, an application for appeal for the approval of the CCL was submitted to the Trinity County Planning Department. The appellant basically gives a statement, which I can read if you would like. And then staff has gone and essentially tried to break out the sort of individual reasons identified in that statement and responded to them. So the statement reads, I have cattle in the adjoining pasture and the water source is used to water them and also supplement my household. The water source is located on my property. In my pasture and in the field below their tanks, the wild kitten flower grows. I understand it is a protected plant. The spring is on my property. They were pumping water from the creek with a gas-powered pump in mid-May. This water source flows into Hetton Creek, which is very low and flows into the Van Duzen River. The residents down creek from me will also be impacted. So essentially, we've broken out 5 main reasons for appeal and responded to those reasons for appeal. I can go through them all if you would like, or if you have specific questions. I'm happy to address any technical questions or clarifying questions you may have.
Do the commissioners have questions for staff? Well, as usual, I have a few. So the staff report talks about DWR and Fish and Wildlife LSAA, that they have permission to essentially have that cistern seep well that is pulling water from that area. Do they consider impacts to downstream water users? I mean, during a drought, are they going to consider that, maybe though that use of water, it's like they have 57,500 gallons of storage. Do they consider that water is going to impact downstream water users in their permitting process? How does that work?
Unfortunately, I can't speak for the CDFW process specifically. My understanding is that there is the ability for moratoriums to be placed on watersheds during drought conditions, but to my knowledge, no such action has been taken.
Okay, because I'm thinking back to the patent permit, which, takes water out of Salt Creek. And there are conditions on that permit that if the, if the withdrawal for irrigation for the cannabis starts impacting downstream users, they have to stop. And I'm just curious whether or not that kind of a condition is in this permit.
I am not super familiar with that patent project, but if I'm following, I'm assuming you're referring to the type 3 license, which is a discretionary permit. And so there is the ability for staff or the commission to condition that approval. Typically, my understanding and the practice over the past year and a half has been that generally there are no conditions applied to these small license approvals.
So, all right, well then, at the August 3rd meeting, basically, I'll ask this question again. If they've checked all the boxes, in their Appendix C, then are you still saying that this director's decision is ministerial and that we really have no ability to put conditions on this or to change things?
I think we ventured into uncharted water in the appeal that you're referring to. I can't speak, for county council. Obviously, that is what happened on the appeal you're referring to. So it seems possible.
Okay, I'm just, as a hydrologist, I'm worried about water supply and how it's going to affect downstream water users, because I see that one of the appellants is directly downstream from this property. So how far away is that cistern seep well from the intermittent waterway?
I don't know offhand, and I'm not sure that it is clearly identified. It probably is in the LSAA, and I could try and look that up for you if that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, so they have to have their cultivation activities more than 100 feet, but it didn't really show on the map where the cistern or seep well was relative to the intermittent waterway.
And I don't believe that 100-foot setback requirement related to cultivation activities applies to seep wells or diversions, because typically a point of diversion would be in a water course.
Right. Because one of the questions, Mr. Gilman may address this when he gets up, just hang on, is, he said that the spring was on his property. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly where the water is coming from, this intermittent waterway, and then what the effect would be downstream. So, okay, those are my questions. Do other commissioners have questions? Okay, Mr. Gilman, you have 10 minutes to present anything that you would like to say.
Okay, good evening. As he read my statement, as for them following the rules, I talked to Fish and Game. They had a permit to pump water until the end of March. I have pictures of them pumping water the middle of May. And I've lost a picture. This is one, a gas-powered pump. They were not pumping from the cistern. They were pumping directly out of the creek. And I need to find my other pictures. As you was talking about in the last appeal, they weren't supposed to do anything until they got their license, but they trenched across the wetland areas on that map and put in a water line. And that was done way later. That was done probably in June or July. And the only reason I found it is I had a cow get out of my pasture and I had to go get her back. Therefore, I had to be on that property. And I stumbled across their trench and their water line. And clearly, they're not supposed to do that. I lost the best picture. It shows the water line going right across it. Oh, man. Yeah. Here it is. This is the line that they put across that wetland. And as I stated, this directly affects my livestock business because the spring head on this property, I also have a well, but I use that to water my livestock, to fill my water troughs, and I also have to supplement my household water because of the other grows surrounding me. And this is critical, shortage of water. My family's on one side has been in Hettenshaw since 1862 on the Duncan side. I am also part Wailaki Indian. They've been there before the white man ever showed up. And they came into that valley and camped to dig the Ketton bulb for food. It was a food source for them. And by the Ketton flower only grows in wet areas. And if these people start pumping the water out of there, they're saying 50,000 gallons. Anybody that knows the cannabis business knows that they're going to be pumping hundreds of thousand gallons of water out of there. And like I said, it's going to affect me more than anybody else, but everybody down the creek from me that relies on that water is going to be in trouble. They're going to be short of water because they have wells that, of course, the water flowing that direction is going to their wells. And it's going to cause an eyesore in the middle of what I've been told is our beautiful valley. Several people have told me this. I've lived there all my life, so, you know, I like it. But people from out of the area that come in say you have a beautiful valley. And if we have this big grove right in the middle of it, you know, you're going to ruin our whole scenic valley. And I probably ain't saying everything I should. I'm not very good at public speaking, but I'm really worried that you're going to allow this to go through. It, like I said, the main reason is it affects my livelihood. I'm a retired county employee and I raise cattle to help get by. And if they pump this amount of water out of that area, they will, you know, if I can't water my livestock, therefore I'm out of business. If they pump enough water, they're going to dry up. This is my main summer pasture. And if they dry that up, I'm out of business. So you would allow, I don't want you to allow somebody that hasn't been there to put somebody who has roots in that valley. And within 300 or 400 yards of their site, their house, my family's buried there. I have roots that go back to 1862 in that valley, and I would hate to see this happen. Like I say, we have groves surrounding us, and that is enough. I'm not against the growers. It's just, you know, when it affects me, if it's gonna put me out of business, then I am really concerned, you know, because there's a lot of us that don't have an alternative. I mean, what do? You get pushed out by the growers, so you have to move somewhere else. Why should we have to move? And there's other families in that valley that have been there for generations. Their families go back generations. There's, and I've turned in a petition signed by, I believe, 26 residents and/or property owners of the valley against this proposed operation. And people had told me that they would send letters in. Evidently, you didn't get them. I'm glad I at least brought copies of what I had. I know I sent the petition that I made up in, and I was told that it wasn't here. And there's another letter from a reputable property owner that I brought a copy of it over here for you to pass around and read. But basically, I'm just saying, I really hope you turn this down. And I'm willing to take questions on what they have in there on my issues. If you want to question me about why I said what I said.
So commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Gilman?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Sharp?
Mr. Gilman, on this map, they have the parcel that you're appealing the license on highlighted in red. Where are you located in?
I am directly east of their, I'm on the north end of their property and the east side, on two sides.
He must be.
So I did go on to our parcel viewer, and I'm going to show a map to Commissioner Sharp where I noted your property and Ms. Decker's property, who is also one of the appellants.
Elgin's, they border it on the west, be the southwest side, on the south side of the county road.
All around.
I have the map up here. I can come up and show you
So-
if you'd like.
Mr. Gilman, are you on the downstream side of him or the upstream?
I'm upstream and downstream.
It kind of wraps around.
Yeah,
Does he go below the big box?
and
This one, no.
So he's not here. He's
This-
just here.
this stream is not intermittent. It flows year round and it has fish in it. And so does the one to the south of them. It also has fish in it. I have, right now it does. It had it back earlier. I have a video on my phone. I don't know how to do anything with it other than watch it. I don't know how to send texts or any of that kind of stuff, but I do have a video of fish in the other creek on the south side of them. But, Mr. Sharp, would you like me to show you where my property is on that map?
And while he's doing that, I have a question for staff. The DCC permit expires on I'll wait.
This is you.
Yeah, and this is the spring head that supplies this creek.
And so the creek flows this way.
Right. This is Saturday.
And then this creek flows this way as well.
Right.
Okay. So your take is it up here?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the spring head. And I also have a shallow well off to this side that I pump to supply water to my livestock.
And the beautiful pictures of the pump that you showed having in the creek here, is that like in the middle of the property there or something?
It's probably right in this area right here.
Okay.
And they wasn't pumping out of a cistern. It was directly out of the creek.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Gilman.
I have a question for staff. So the staff report said that their DCC permit expires 9/28/2023. So is their DCC permit valid now?
I could look up and see if we have information related to whether or not they've renewed, but whether they have a valid DCC permit or not, it really has no bearing on the county's approval of the project.
And then water will be through a DWR and a Fish and Wildlife LSAA agreement. So are those agreements valid?
Yeah, I actually pulled up the LSAA to try and answer your previous question about the distance from the water course. And I'm unable to, give you a distance from the water course. You can also see on the site plan mapping that it looks as though the water course is not mapped as far north as the point of diversion. And so, we could make an inference in terms of, the proximity to the water course. The information that the LSA is valid until 2026. And basically it says the diversion consists of a 36-inch diameter cylindrical concrete cistern set 14 feet into the substrate with a static water level of approximately 7 feet.
Do they look at recovery time for a cistern seep well, the same as the county does for a well? For a well permit, you can figure out whether or not that well is adequate to supply that cannabis irrigation. Do we do the same thing for a cistern seep well?
That's a great question. In terms of CDFW, obviously I can't speak directly for them, but I typically do, and there is information on the rate that they've established in terms of, typically with points of diversion, they set a maximum, volume or gallons per minute that can be drawn from that point of diversion. So in this case, it says diversion will occur at a maximum instantaneous rate of 10 gallons per minute. In terms of your, specific hydrologic question, I assume that there is some sort of technical information that helps them to make the determination of what is a reasonable amount of water to divert from any given point of diversion.
May I speak?
Yeah,
Sure.
Commissioner Heaton.
Yeah, another element that, because I am familiar with this parcel and I'm familiar with this grow when you drive through it, like Mr. Gilman has spoke. I also know that the far end of the valley, the south side of it, we also have another licensed grow that is going on as well. And when you look at, and that was one that we passed not too long ago, it was Jeff Gadella. But anyhow, just south in the adjoining parcel of Jeff there's another grow that's going on. I don't believe it's licensed at the moment. And then there is another grow over there, but I know that there's many people who their wells go dry in the summer.
That's what I'm worried about.
And it was like, and I know that's a fact because it's like our law LEO for the Forest Service he's one of them. And it's like when we got a bunch of grows, the wells all grow dry. And so it's like, that's a concern that I have personally myself.
Can we ask questions of him and bring that back for discussion? Because I do have questions for you, but
Do you have questions for Mr. Gilman?
no, I was wondering if anybody else did.
Anybody else have questions for Mr. Gilman?
Yeah, if I may. How long has this business been in operation there?
Which business?
The one,
My business?
No, the cannabis grow.
They haven't put anything in the ground yet.
Just the water tanks.
Earlier, this was, you was talking about Kim Hunter. When this was, before 2020, somewhere in there, these people bought this property, they moved in and just started to build, was gonna put in a grow. And me and some other people got a hold of her and they stopped it at that time, but they were going to do this without even any permits. They just come in and started to build. And they were shut down then. And it's the same ones, they just are trying to do it legal now. And you know, I don't think it's gonna go very far that way. If they tried to just do it on their own the first time, are they actually gonna follow the rules that you have set for them this time? You know.
So just to
It's
clarify,
a big concern of mine, because like I said, I've lived there all my life. I've raised cattle. I've been in the cattle business since I was big enough to get in the way. And, you know, if they start pumping all this water, not only if I can't water my livestock and I can't supply my house, like I said, I have to, Mr. Heaton brought it up about the wells going dry. My well goes dry. My household well goes dry in summer and fall. And that is why I have to supplement from this water source. You know, it's, yeah, go ahead.
thank you. So do commissioners have any other technical questions for Mr. Gilman? I just wanted to clarify with staff. So this is a proposed operation, correct? They don't have an existing license,
It's never previously been issued a license.
but they did install the water tanks.
Yes,
Yeah.
my understanding is those water tanks were in existence at the time that they
Applied.
applied.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Gilman, what we're going to do now is take public comment. So
Well, I'm the only one here.
we might have some on Zoom. So so do we have any other public comment in the room? How about public comment
Madam
on?
Chair, I don't know
on
if you can
Zoom?
hear me.
Jake?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, this is Jake from Hayfork. I don't know anybody involved in any of these projects, and I have not spent time in the Henton Shaw Valley besides visiting Jeff Goodell's very, very nice operation in the last few years since all of the mega illegal grows moved out of there. But what I'm having a hard time listening to is that we're talking about as a cannabis licensee, and I've been a licensee in this program since 1617. Cannabis is, especially with water use, the most regulated agricultural business in the state of California and probably in the country. I can tell you that every drop of water on my 1 acre grow is accounted for, is recorded. Water logs, spray logs, water sources identified that they could provide far more than is needed. On the contrary, I can tell you that there is one single farmer, a cattle farmer in Hayfork, that uses flood irrigation and has one of the original diversions in the Hayfork Valley that for a couple hundred head of cows uses more water than the entire Trinity County cannabis program combined. In fact, the irrigation practices that are used are outlawed in the Midwest. You're not allowed to flood irrigate in the Midwest to grow grass because they're so wasteful. And I'm sure a hydrologist like we have on the board understands this even better than I do. So what I've been hearing from this, and I believe everybody should be a good neighbor no matter what you do, but I'm hearing one property that is going through all of the hoops and regulations, inspections, biologists, hydrologists, full CEQA documents to make sure that all of these things are correct and suitable on this land versus a neighboring parcel that has an existing agricultural operation, it sounds like cattle, that it sounds like does not have the resources to support that operation. I understand in Trinity County, we don't have that oversight. We don't have inspectors from the county and the state that go out to inspect these cattle operations and make sure there's enough water, make sure that there's enough acres per head of cattle, make sure they're not leaking fuel into the creek or they're not diverting when they shouldn't be. I understand we don't have that, but that's how I'm seeing it. I hear fear about the unknown. Are these people going to follow the rules? Well, let me tell you, as a licensee, you don't have a choice whether to follow the rules or not. You have a choice whether to stay licensed or not.
Thank you, Jake.
That's it.
Can I comment to that?
No, I'm sorry, but we can't respond to public comment. People have the ability to provide public comment. If we have questions, specific questions later, we will ask you later.
Well, the water resource is on my property. I have the resource.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to ask for other public comment on Zoom.
Tom Blanco.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Tom Belanco, Douglas City. I'm actually the agent for the applicant on this license, who would be, I guess, the appellee in this case. So I'm going to try and keep this short, but I would ask if I need more than the 3 minutes to get the 10 minutes.
Certainly, you can have 10 minutes as the agent.
I endeavor not to need them. So I just wanted to clarify a few things about the water situation, and we're kind of conflating a couple of subjects here. So this, we call it a seep well, this cistern, but what in fact the law considers this, and state agencies consider this, is surface water. And that's why the applicant files a statement of diversion and use. When you use surface water, you have to file that. That's why there is an LSAA required, because it is a stream. So this is considered a diversion, even though it is not typically in the stream, it is a seep well. So this is surface water. This is a riparian right. As I'm sure everyone here knows, any property that touches water has a riparian right. This is state law. Fish and Wildlife does not get to say whether you can or cannot use the riparian right. It does regulate how much of that riparian right. And that's why they put pretty much everywhere in Trinity County that I'm aware of the 10 gallon per minute maximum instantaneous flow on most of these surface diversions. Now, Fish and Wildlife does reserve the right in severe cases to limit that. That is part of the LSAA process. If fish are being threatened, amphibians are being threatened, endangered something or other is being threatened, Fish and Wildlife can come in and say, you've got to curtail your usage. It's the Department of Water Rights that would say, you got to be considerate of downstream users and have to curtail your usage, although not with a riparian use. Anybody with riparian rights can put that water to beneficial use on that parcel. That is not, that is just the state of the law. That's the way it is. I imagine the appellant also uses surface water. I did not see a statement of diversion and use, but so I don't know the status of that use. I know he referred to a well. Either way, this is a legal use of water. As regards the forbearance period, I know there was a mention of pumps in May, which would be considered the forbearance period. The forbearance period for cannabis, and why we have a forbearance period, is because the Water Board determined that beneficial use as regards cannabis employs a forbearance period from surface water from April until November 15th. And that means you can't use water for cannabis. That doesn't mean you can't use your riparian rights. You can use water for domestic purposes. You can use water for other crops or pasture. You can use water for fire suppression. And by water, I mean surface water. You can use groundwater anytime. But the forbearance period on surface water only applies to cannabis. So there hasn't been cannabis here. So there's been no violation of a forbearance period because there's no cannabis to put that water on. These are complex areas. There's literally volumes dedicated to water law. And we can think a lot about it. However, none of this is within the jurisdiction of this body. These are water rights, and they are lake and stream alteration agreements, both under state agency. So that aspect, there's just nothing to act on here. The agencies came out, we see the memo, there's no violations. So that is what it is. And I'm sorry, that's how it feels. I know the appellant probably feels like this is a threat to his livelihood. If in fact it is, his action is with the state. As far as the other aspects of the appeal, you know, we do have a robust Appendix C process. It does do a biological resource assessment. It does do a cultural resource assessment. We have grumbled about it. We have said, oh, it's too hard. But the benefit of having it is that we can answer these concerns. We can address the concerns about historic cultural resources, about biology. We have data. This has made it through that process. Staff has been diligent. I would urge the commission to accept staff's conclusions in the report. I think it's thorough. I think the Appendix C analysis is as robust as we have seen. And we can make notes, we can make recommendations to the Water Board or Fish and Wildlife regarding water use, but this is not something, this is, according to the agencies that have jurisdiction, this is an appropriate and lawful use of the water. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Blanco, so are you aware whether or not the Fish and Wildlife essentially permit or authorization, does it have conditions that would require them to curtail use during, for example, when all the neighbors' wells are going dry?
Fish and Wildlife, Madam Chair, Fish and Wildlife does not have jurisdiction over groundwater. So it's this, the Water Board theoretically, if they could determine that there was a linkage between the surface water use that we're talking about and groundwater use elsewhere, which I don't know that the Water Board makes those determinations very often. And many times we see a drought and people saying, oh, my well's gone dry. It must be so-and-so down the creek, that cattle farmer, that pot grower, that whatever. It is very hard to demonstrate connectivity when we're talking about subterranean water. And so if it is considered surface water, which is to say it moves in a defined channel, even if that channel is underground, then it's under jurisdiction of Fish and Wildlife as well. So again, this is convoluted. what Fish and Wildlife does as kind of a blanket security measure, it says everybody gets 10 GPM. If you're taking surface water, that's what you get. Doesn't matter if it's out of the Trinity River. I mean, sometimes it does. I'm not saying they don't make specific allowances. Sometimes they definitely do. But in general, your basic LSA says 10 gallons per minute. And that is how the powers that be in Sacramento determined is protective of uses and the environment.
Thank you. Any other public sorry, that was agent comment. So do we have public comment on Zoom?
I'm not seeing anything. They lowered their hand earlier, so.
I'm just looking, 10 gallons per minute is 14,400 gallons per day. That doesn't seem very protective. Sorry. Okay. No other public comment on Zoom. We will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for a motion. I do have a clarification question for the staff. So all our alternatives, it says if the planning commission does not wish to deny the appeal, the following alternatives are available. It says the planning commission could move to uphold the appellant's request to approve the application.
I didn't understand that one either.
So,
I guess I'm gonna have to apologize for that typo. I think that's a carryover from P2309.
okay, so all our alternatives are that we could move to uphold the appellant's request to deny the application, period, with findings stated by the planning commission. Is that correct?
I believe you could uphold the appellant's request to deny, or you could uphold the director's decision to approve.
But if we chose alternative one, we'd have to state findings for why we wanted to uphold the appellant's request. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Or we could request more time if we had questions that we wanted answered. Okay. So those are the options. Deny the appeal, deny the application, or request more time.
So I'll make a motion. I'll motion that the planning commission should move to uphold the appellant's appeal to deny the license with findings.
Do we have a second?
Can I ask clarification on that?
Sure.
The findings.
Well, that's what we'll discuss.
So, okay.
Couldn't hear him.
So do we have a second?
That does mean we get to discuss, right?
Correct.
Okay, then I second it.
Motion by Commissioner Sharp, second by Commissioner Ellis. If I understand correctly, the Planning Commission would uphold the applicant's request to deny the application with findings stated by the Planning Commission.
Correct.
Okay,
May I just clarify that it would be deny the director's decision or uphold the appeal of the director's decision?
Correct.
to uphold the appeal. Okay. So let me restate that. So Commissioner Sharp moves that the Planning Commission uphold the appellant's request to uphold the appeal of the director's decision?
No.
No.
It should be the planning commission move to uphold the appellant's request to appeal the planning director's decision.
Already has appealed it though, right?
To uphold his appeal of the planning director's approval of the license. I believe that's correct.
What I said? So we would uphold the appellant's request to uphold the appeal of the director's decision.
Wasn't the appellant's request to deny? That correct?
He is. So the applicant's appealing the approval of the director's decision. And that's what we're upholding. Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. We will, yeah, once we get it for discussion, then we can amend.
Okay. So discussion.
Madam Chair, if I may. So my first question, actually, and Todd, this kind of, Commissioner Heaton, comes back to you. I noticed in this list of people living in Hinshaw that are wanting this license denied. One of those people on this list is Susan Thorpe, who contacted my office about 3 months ago in regards to a opt-out that they were trying to put together. Are these people part of that? Or are you privy to that? Or is staff privy to that? And where is that in the process? Or is it in the process at all? I got a lot of questions.
Well, one of the things is, today I just got hooked back up with my, my account, my, email account. And so it's like, I saw some of that, just briefly when I was with IT before. So I have not got to look at the, list of the individuals who has signed the opt-out. I know some of them I know some of them because they've mentioned it to me. So I know that there are several of them on the opt-out list who are desiring that on this same list here, even though I've not seen it, just from conversations that I've had.
Thank you, Commissioner Eaton. So the question then would be go back to staff. Has there been an opt-out applied for or asked for but from these people to the county?
To my knowledge, yes, there has been an application, if you want to call it that. It's really more of a petition.
Isn't that what an opt-out is, though, as a petition?
Yeah, but so just to clarify that there's no application per se.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, a petition for the Hetton Valley has been received.
Okay. So I'd like to amend my motion.
Okay.
So my motion will be the planning commission should move to uphold the appellant's request for appeal of the cannabis license and the director's decision to approve it with findings that there's an active petition for an opt-out in this area, until at which time that decision can be decided on that this license should be held until that decision is made. Much like the last one, these seem to be happening simultaneously. And again, this didn't just come up tonight. This was in front of my office at least 90 days ago, probably prior to that. And I know it's been on the county's radar at least that long.
So hang on. So does the seconder accept that amendment?
I need more clarification.
Okay. Please clarify.
Mr. Pavani, you had said that the petition had come before you, and then you said something after, but I didn't know if you said denied or just that you received it.
I did not personally receive the petition. I am aware of it because I was requested by the CAO to look through the files to determine what existing petitions we had in our digital files.
And then the next question would it be wise and kinder to the applicant to not approve it at this point with that in the air, so that what just happened on the last one doesn't happen again?
I don't know if kindness is particularly part of our regulatory process.
Understood. Would it be prudent?
I think what would be most prudent is to have legal counsel weigh in on this. And I can text now and see if I can get them on the line.
Okay, so are you seconding this for discussion then?
For discussion, I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And the findings would be, could you please repeat that, due to the petition?
Findings due to an active petition in front of the county asking for an opt-out zone. And it looks like by a substantial number, and maybe Mr. Heaton can speak to that. How many people are in this area?
I'm not exactly sure how many people, because I don't know, but I know that like when you look at this list right here, I know of a couple more that are not on the list who are in the area, but it was like, but of the ones whom I've known and known all my life, this will take up a huge portion of the members of the valley.
So you would say it's more than half of the people in the valley on this
To
list?
my knowledge, yes.
So that alone would, in my opinion, justify us holding on this license until these people have been heard. Again, it's not just about one person, it's about all, and that's our job, is to plan for everybody, not just one. And again, we just faced this exact situation an hour ago where somebody said they could do something, they invested money in it, and then they said they couldn't because there's an active opt-out in process. This is the same situation here. We have an active opt-out in process. We have somebody applying for a license. The county is, in my opinion, not making a wise decision, back to what Commissioner Ellis was stating, in moving this license forward with that information at hand. I think it's presumptuous, and may end up, again, somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose in an opt-out. But until the majority of the landowners are heard, I don't know how you can move forward.
So I have a question for Director Plabani. So do you know if the Hutton Valley opt-out is being considered in the current cannabis license, cannabis regulation review?
My hesitation is that what we are considering or what we have proposed in the first draft of the ordinance updates is to establish a process to guide what was previously or currently has been termed an opt-out and convert that to an exclusionary overlay zone process. And so we have had discussion about the currently approved opt-outs and also these pending opt-out petitions. But to your specific question, Chair Fall, the ordinance updates are not capturing the specific review of any of these existing petition requests for opt-out.
Okay. So I think it's good that we let the applicant know that, I mean, again, there's a petition and right now that's the process because we haven't changed it yet.
It is the process and it's happening, and we need to let that process out.
Commissioner Barrett, I'm sorry.
We're not here, the appeal wasn't based on an opt-out zone. So we don't have the jurisdiction to address the water. That's all addressed in the LSA and the CEQA. That's what the document, the reasons for the appeal here are stated. Water concerns, Native American sites, potential economic impact to our community, visual impairment to surrounding, and allegations of illegally diverting water. It's not because it's an opt-out. So I don't feel that we should consider what potentially might be coming. We should address the reasons it's being appealed here tonight, and they have all been addressed in a current correct CEQA.
Yeah, but you just said in the last meeting that it was egregious how the county acted toward the last applicant, that they moved forward. And then what if this happens to this applicant?
I understand that, but the reason we're here for the appeal today is not because this is an opt-out. That's something you brought to the table. And I understand you bringing it to the table in full disclosure.
I didn't bring it to the table. Actually, these people brought it to my office
Correct.
3 months ago.
Correct.
Which has been in front of the county, well before this license was ever on our radar. So I didn't bring this up.
I would agree with that. Let me retract that. It is something that's been discussed. I've heard it passed at last meetings, but you brought it to a reference tonight is what I meant, not that you brought it up.
Well, it is findings in this case because their names are on this document. So it is, I didn't bring it here.
No.
It's here.
But the reasons for the appeal are not because of that opt-out. So I feel the reasons for the appeal are what should be addressed tonight. The opt-out should be addressed at a different opportunity.
Well, I would say if Commissioner Sharp hadn't brought up the petition for the opt-out, I would have been making findings that or at least asking for a continuation, that we don't have assurance that the water issues are addressed. I mean, I'm still uncomfortable with that volume of water, 10 gallons a minute, 14,000 gallons a day. They got 57,000 gallons of storage. That could really dewater a riparian area. And so I'm just worried about that. But I will go with, I believe the advance notice to the applicant, essentially that, right now, this is not a good time to apply for this permit because, you may not be able to proceed in the future.
So I just got, I'm texting with Margaret Long. She just said that, she's asking me some questions back and forth, but she said, but the opt-out petition hasn't been granted. And I responded, correct. She said, that's not legally sufficient to deny. And then I totally agree with your concerns, as a hydrologist and the impacts to surrounding, other diversions and water uses. I think Mr. Blanco spoke quite effectively to, essentially, one, Trinity County doesn't particularly have that regulatory authority, and that the use of surface water is regulated by CDFW in this instance, which I can read to you from their LSAA, but there's 13 pages of information, as part of their LSA, their approved LSAA, which specifically talks, or works through that, their process in terms of what they've established to try to minimize the negative effects of them allowing these points of diversion from surface water.
But if they're predicated on assuming that 10 gallons per minute is okay, then how can they make that assumption? I mean,
well, I think where they,
like I said, you don't have a recovery. You don't have a requirement. I mean, I know that this is ministerial, and I think to a certain extent, this is an exercise in futility, because you're going to tell me that if it's a director's decision, it's a ministerial process, and all we can do is approve it because they checked all the boxes. But I think that the county doesn't necessarily, we have the ability on other similar operations to look at the well recovery data. I don't see why we can't look at that for the cistern seep well recovery data to see if, that's a reasonable number, and, if they're going to be dewatering the riparian area or not.
and I agree with you, from a general hydrologic standpoint. Essentially, my take on the way the EIR is constructed is that the well monitoring requirement is unrelated to surface water, it's groundwater. And so while I don't disagree with you, again, I'm not sure really what I would have to rely on to make that determination. We have to rely on the other agencies at this point.
So can we ask Margaret whether or not we have the ability to uphold the appeal due to concerns about water use affecting downstream users?
But is that not what the EIR or the CEQA and all have already addressed? So we already have that answer.
Again, I mean, so the whole thing, we went through this with the patent permit, and we're able to add a condition because, as Director Plabani says, that was not a director's use permit. But the concern there was that you have a general, very general EIR. It doesn't delve into specifics on things like, in this particular area, you have people whose wells go dry. You know, somewhere else, you may not have that concern. So here, water use is a concern. And so to me, you know, we should have the ability to drill down a little bit more and protect the adjacent landowners.
I agree with that. And as someone whose well runs dry, this is the first year actually in 7 years I've had continuous water. So big year for me. I am sensitive to wells running dry and the impact it has on your neighbors and on livestock and on grazing land. But I feel those issues have been addressed adequately in the EIR and the CEQA.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to deny the application due to the active petition for an opt-out area.
I'm going to disagree with county council.
Okay, I was going to say, do we want to go ahead and vote on that?
Have an alternative motion?
I can also read to you some of her additional comments related to utilizing the pending or, you know, the petition for the opt-out as a finding.
Please.
She says, they have to take the law as it is today, the day of the hearing, and if the opt-out hasn't been granted yet, they cannot make any findings as if it is. And then I asked the question, can the appeal be upheld based on concerns of water? She says, and she's texting more, says, depends. Does the application violate a water provision in the cannabis ordinance? If yes, that's valid grounds for denial.
But it doesn't, so.
Well, you don't know that it doesn't. I mean, I don't think we have enough information.
Well, I would agree with that, but with what information is supplied in the boxes that they're required to check, they've checked them.
So we're back to, I don't know why we waste our time on these things. If the director's decision says we checked all the boxes and
I would
we
agree.
can't do anything different. We can't put a condition or anything.
Right. I still would disagree with county council, you know, and for the sheer fact that I'm not basing it on an opt-out. I'm basing on the fact that the county has that and has had that opt-out information during probably the same time period that it's had the application for the license. And what did it choose to do? Did it choose to process the license before the opt-out, or did the opt-out application come in after the license? That we do not know. We do not have that information, nor do I think you have that information. And for that reason is why I should say at least we deny it until that information can be supplied. What came first, the application for the opt-out or the application for the license? Because again, even if it's illegal for us to find that, if the county held something and didn't produce it when they were supposed to, or prior to the license being produced, if it came in first, then the county is going to be liable for that. So one way or another, they're either liable if we put things on hold, or they're liable because they didn't do their job when they had the application to begin with, or there wasn't a process to actually apply for the opt-out applicant to actually move on. So that's the bigger question that I would probably want to be asked by maybe holding this and putting it off for another meeting to get more information, to see, what was put forward first.
And I could likely pull up that information for you right now.
Okay.
But I still don't think that that addresses the primary concern, which is based on, extensive discussion that we've been having lately as it relates to exclusionary zones and the implementation of that process. My understanding, and obviously, I can't offer you legal guidance, but I would discourage the commission from taking action with the findings related to the opt-out. But if you, wish to continue the item, that's certainly a viable option.
I think that we need to look at it just like we did on the previous one. In the previous one, when the opt-out happened, it set the boundaries. Well, this opt-out hasn't happened, so the boundaries are already set. So this license, regardless of when that information became available, didn't affect the licensing process necessarily. Unfortunately from that angle, I don't see it being a viable way to go. I think that the license application has checked all the boxes. And yes, there's water concerns. Absolutely. I have them too. And I feel for that, but I don't see anything that says that this application's done anything wrong or incomplete, I should say.
Okay, so I think we need to vote on the motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
Okay,
So,
Commissioner Ellis, how do you vote?
no.
Commissioner Sharp, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Barrett, how do you vote?
No.
And Commissioner Chair Fall, how do you vote?
Aye.
I have 4 noes against the motion and 1 for. So the motion fails.
Okay, so we need another motion, I do believe.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Barrett,
I make a motion to deny the appeal of P23-19 upholding the director's decision to approve CCL 771 with the finding referenced in this staff report.
motion by Commissioner Barrett. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Would you like a roll call again?
Do we have any?
We're going to have discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have any discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner
So-
Sharp?
Yeah, I'd like to explain myself. So thank you, Commissioner Ellis, because you are right. The opt-out is not in place. The license is at hand and on the table. And there is winners and losers in all of this. And again, I wish the county would honestly get its act together. If we need an application process for an opt-out, then there should be one. It shouldn't be a discussion. It should just be to figure it out, and I'm not admonishing anybody here. I'm just stating the obvious.
Agreed.
Let's get it together. Let's get an application process. So, we're not getting emails to commissioners. What do we do? I don't know. Send them to the county. They go to the county. And of course we hear, an appeal for that exact area. It's not coincidence. It's happening for a reason. And it's because we don't have good processes in place. And that is why I voted against my own motion, because I don't agree with the application. I think it is wrong if you have that many people against it to do something that is probably going to affect their way of life. They will have less water. That's for sure, to feed their cattle and to do the things that they've always done. And that all needs to go into consideration when it comes to planning. And that's what we're supposed to be here doing, is planning. And I don't feel like we're planning. I feel like we're just issuing permits and licenses to people without thinking of water issues, without thinking of land issues, without thinking of established rights that have been there for years issues. And I just think we're setting ourselves up for failure again and again. And this just feels like another one of those. So that's my reason.
Thank you,
Crazy
Commissioner
as it
Sharp.
feels.
Any other discussion? I will say, I know I'm going to lose on this one, but I would really request that the staff assist the neighbors and the applicant, the appellant, I'm sorry, to deal with potential water issues. I mean, you have people that, you know, they're in a part of the county, they get no resources, they get no response from the county. You have staff saying you should get a digital photo with a date and time, you know, when obviously Mr. Gilman has photos, but I mean, how many of us have our digital camera set up so it always takes date and time stamps? I mean, we need to be a lot more helpful, the staff does, in terms of if there are problems, in helping them document those and helping them deal with fish and wildlife. So that's my discussion. Okay, so now roll call vote.
Commissioner Sharp, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Fall, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you. I have 4-1 to approve the staff's recommendations of the Planning Commission to deny the appeal P2319, upholding the approval of CCL 771.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We will move on to Planning Commissioner reports.
I report, I went to Washington, DC. It was amazing. I highly recommend everybody going.
Did you shake the president's hand?
No, I did not. But he was there and Congress wasn't. Imagine that.
The other Planning Commissioner reports. I will report that I attended the Board of Supervisors meeting when they had the agenda item to discuss the community vision and also the community boundaries for community plans. For both of those, I spoke as a private citizen related to Trinity Center. But then the Board of Supervisor discussion expanded into a more general question about how the staff had interacted and obtained essentially permission from the Planning Commission. So I was trying to answer some questions as far as, you know, how we had reviewed the consultant's proposals. So that will come back up, I think, when we get to the planning director's report. But I just want to let you know that I was there to talk specifically as a private citizen about Trinity Center, and then we got roped into trying to answer questions about how the general plan and the Planning Commission had been interacting. And then I will turn it over to Director Presley to follow up with the planning report.
I have one thing I forgot I needed to mention.
Commissioner Heaton.
And so sorry for interrupting. This week it was brought to my attention, somebody applied for a K of the limited was the class K is the limited density dwelling thing. And it showed they sent me, well, actually, I think I even have it on my phone. I'll read it and then I'll do it justice and it won't screw everything up. Who was that from? That was from my wife, I think, who sent that to me. She wasn't the one, she was with a friend. And nope, that's the wrong. I'm sorry. But it was talking about where are you? I had it printed off. I'll do it like this. Oh, here it is right there. How do you pull it up? Lord have mercy. I'm sorry. Let's see if it came down here. Oh, that's not where it's at either. Oh, there it is. Yep, right here. It was the Trinity County Planning Authorization Entry Private Property. It was a document that has to be signed on that. And at the very last statement, on the last paragraph, there's only 2 paragraphs there. It says, by signing this authorization to enter your property, you're granting the department access to your property for the purpose of evaluating your proposed project. The authorization is valid from the date the department receives notice of your proposed project and in any monitoring periods thereafter. And then you sign your name. But I got to be honest with you, it's like I read that and we were part of the K housing thing, but it's like monitoring periods thereafter, any monitoring periods thereafter. There's no cutoff date on that. I'll be honest with you, if that was me, I would not sign a document that says I basically an unending opportunity for the government to a governing entity to come onto my property. That's my personal feelings. And I'm just going to say, I think that we should, in this document, I think it should be appropriate if we put a time period on there, because once you sign this, it was like, I'm giving somebody unlimited opportunity to come on my property whenever. It was like, that don't sit well with me, and it don't sit well with people in Southern Trinity. I want to just let that be known, because it was like, call me what you want to call me, but I don't trust government. And it's like,
I think that's because when we approved the Class K housing, we gave people a long period of time to finish anything. So,
but it was a 3-year period.
Well, the monitoring period is the time which your application, your building permit is still open.
Is that what
Yeah.
it's referring to?
Once your building permit is closed, the monitoring is over.
Okay, because it was like,
Once
because
you
it
get
just
your
says
final.
for any monitoring periods. And it was like, okay, thank you for clarifying, because it was like, that did not set well with me, and it did not set well with my friend as well.
Come on, they already watch you, Todd.
Well, I know they do.
They know
I
what
know-
you
That's why I live in Ruthville. It's like, remember?
It's like, no, I'm sure that's what it's referring to. I mean, you could get them to clarify. permit.
I would like a little clarification. My friend would like a little clarification, because it was like, I don't know. It was like, I'd hate be peeing off my porch and somebody wandered up on there. You know, it's like, that's not appropriate.
I mean, most building officials I ever met will never come on your property unless they're invited. I mean, yeah, they're not going to come through your gate. They're not going to come on your property. Even in other counties. I mean, I've got land in Humboldt, Shasta. They won't come on unless I'm there.
Yeah.
They're like, nope. No, there's like, we're not coming on.
Okay.
It's closed.
Okay, because it was like, because when it says many monitoring periods thereafter, it's like they didn't quite understand. I didn't quite understand. I was like, wait a second. I get it now, but it's like, but because of that K housing deal had like a 3-year permit, 3-year deal.
No, it's longer than that.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh,
So they can only apply for a new one every, whatever it is, 3 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Take as long as you want to whittle that wood.
There you go. Hand hewn.
That's right.
That's right. Okay. Okay. That's what I had to share.
Okay. Any other planning commissioner reports? Director Presley, please explain our schedule. So we don't have a meeting on October 26th?
Correct. Correct, ma'am. I would also like to remind, if any planning commissioner was interested in listening, these meetings are recorded forever. So you could even have your children, children's children come back and watch.
Well, I say that kind of stuff at church all the time. So it's like, it doesn't bother me. It embarrasses some of the folks though, that some of the older ladies that go there, but.
I bet. Okay, so I want to start off with the more difficult stuff. And more difficult stuff is what happened at the Board of Supervisor meeting. So what it boiled down to was the vision and guiding principles. When we had the general plan update team come in here and give the presentation, the recommendations were not in a form of it being a formal recommendation by the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors. So there was public comment because that was not worded absolutely correctly.
It wasn't an action item, it was a presentation.
Exactly. So we're going to have to bring them back and we're going to have to revisit the vision and guiding principles. I think mostly it's already been decided and it's already been done, but it has to be an action item from here to the Board of Supervisors. The second item, which we'll have to see how well it goes, is the determination of which communities actually get community plans, whether they're going to be specific communities or it's going to be area plans. So we had that at the Board of Supervisor, but again, public comment brought up that we, meaning staff, had not brought that to the Planning Commission. So I take responsibility for that. I think that's a foul on my part that I just missed that. So another part of their presentation, another item on the 11-9 meeting is going to be a presentation and then a formal action item for the Planning Commission to recommend these are the communities that should have a standalone community plan. And these are the communities that will be grouped together to have area plans. So that was a difficult pill to swallow at the Board of Supervisor meeting, but I definitely appreciate Chair Fall being there, saying what she said, because the intent of the Planning Commission, especially for the vision and guiding principle, was to be very clear that it's being recommended. So
I tried
just
to
really
convince them that we were like all in consensus. That would cross
Yep.
that off their list. We did that and it didn't work.
Buy it.
No. But I do have a question. So I just listened to the Board of Supervisors meeting again. So they also had agenda item 4.4, determine community boundaries for community plans. And they sent that back to the Planning Commission. So I believe that we are also going to be looking at community boundaries once we figure out the area and community plans.
Yes.
Okay, so three things.
It's not going to be on the same night though.
Okay,
So the two items that will be on 11-9 will be the vision guiding principle, which it'll pretty much just be a rehash of what the commission's already decided. And then determining exactly to your point of what you were bringing up at the board, which community plans will be recommended, whether there be a specific community or they be an area plan. Then once the Board of Supervisors says, yes, we agree, and here's how we're going to move forward after the Planning Commission's recommendation, they're going to literally send it back to the Planning Commission. Okay, so now the Planning Commission gets first crack on community boundaries. So then it will be another presentation by the general plan update team to present what they've already compiled as far as community boundaries for the Planning Commission to actually vote on, decide what their recommendation is going to be for the actual boundaries of the proposed community plans.
so, but the board said as soon as possible. So we only have, I think, one meeting in November because our fourth Thursday in November is Thanksgiving. So are you thinking that the community boundary meeting wouldn't be until December?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we'd hear the December 14th. That's fine.
Okay, so then no meeting on the 26th, but on November 9th, which is our regular meeting, we would have the reaffirmation as an action item on the vision and guiding principles. And then we would determine where or whether we would have area and community plans. The Board of Supervisors has already weighed in on that. So potentially we would just kind of say, yeah, we go along with the Board of Supervisors?
I'll tell you exactly what I would do. I would cast off all preconceived, all decisions made, and I would look at it from the commission's point of view and say, I agree with that, I don't agree with that, and make your own recommendation. I personally would not take, and hopefully they're not going to watch this meeting. I would not take what the board said and decided. I would actually start fresh and say, this is what, as a planning commission, we decide.
Well, are we going to have presentations to make an action item from the consultants on the 9th?
Yes.
They're going to recommend, because they had recommended certain area plans and community plans to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors looked at it and said, nah. So
Really?
are they going to make the same presentation?
They will make the presentation as far as the community plans, but you got to remember, the board had already said that we actually are going back months. So the board had already decided there's going to be the standard 5 standalone community plans plus 3 extra community plans. All of that is wiped. So now it's going to be, what do the planning commission actually decide as what you want to recommend to the Board of Supervisors, is who gets a community plan, who gets an area plan, or who doesn't get anything. And at the same time, they still fall under the auspices of the
General plan.
So it's not like you have to have a community plan. It's
Right.
just those unique areas that may have something specific that's different, to consider.
Commissioner Sharp?
Did any of you guys get on their website and do the circles, what you thought were
I
made up your
did 3.
communities?
I did Trinity Center, Covington Mill, and Minersville, which is one of my complaints, is like there was no control over how many people could go in there and do it again and again and again.
Right.
So you did it 3 times?
I did it.
300 times, so I'm sure it's my way. Because I figured that out.
When
I had neighbors who, they're older folks, and they were like, I can't draw those lines on the computer. They gave up. So that was pretty bogus. I've told them that. I mean, they have stuff listed in Trinity Center that's clearly in Covington Mill. They have stuff listed in Trinity Center that's in Coffee Creek. I mean, like,
Everything.
You could
past
put
Stewart's
anything
Fork
you
is
wanted.
Trinity Center, you don't know that?
well, there's no quality control. There was nobody looking at it and going, the Carville Inn is nowhere near Trinity Center.
It's like downriver. Once you get over Organ Mountain, you're downriver. It's your community.
Anyway, I'm going to stop
Uh,
whining.
It's funny you say that, because it was like in Ruth, here we are in Ruth, and it was like, and we're get a Mad River zip code, and so we were lumped into Mad River. But we're not Mad River at all. And then you go farther south to the head of the valley down there, and you got a community of Three Forks. There's only about 4 people in Three Forks, but that is a specific community.
Minersville is a community on their map, and Minersville is under the lake. It doesn't even exist anymore. And I'm like, wait. They said they had me. They had one response from Minersville. And I said, and this is Ridgeville. Anyway. Okay. So we got some work cut out for
I'm
us.
excited. It sounds like planning.
So also, I sent you an email earlier, Sheriff Hall, about the special meeting.
The one on the 26th being canceled.
Next month. It's for the cannabis ordinance.
We had a meeting on the 26th, special meeting from the 26th for the cannabis ordinance.
No,
Now we have another one.
that one had to be scrubbed. It will be the 16th. I put it in the email, and it's just a request because we need to get the cannabis ordinance like moving forward and stuff.
So we're going to meet the 9th and the 16th?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Commissioners? Commissioners, okay, November 16th, a special meeting for the cannabis ordinance. When are we going to get a draft of that?
No, I'm just
Tomorrow.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
Because my understanding is the cannabis ad hoc is still having,
Yes, we
Input.
spent 7 hours yesterday and another 2 hours today moving in that direction. And I forget which day it was actually going to be available. So
That there should be a press release related to the changing timeline come out tomorrow from the CAO. So that should give some clarity as to what's going on. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but my recollection from our ad hoc meeting today was that we landed on, is it Friday, November the 3rd, as the date that we were shooting to have the draft released to the public roughly 10 days in advance of that special PC meeting that Director Presley just requested.
So I would say, I mean, I would just recommend that we give more time than 4 days to look at this. So if it gets released on the 3rd, that would give us, by the time we get it in the mail, for those of us that don't get email, we're talking 3 days to review it.
No, it's the 16th.
16th. So the 9th is a
Okay.
general plan.
Okay, gotcha.
The 16th would be the special
That'd be great.
meeting on the cannabis ordinance. And you're combining,
Yeah. No, as long as we have enough time to go over it, I'm good. I don't care.
okay.
Okay, so a couple more items here. I wanted to follow up on something that Commissioner Sharp had brought up before about the Trinity Market.
Yeah.
The green box. So I have gotten some information and I talked to the CAO about that. And he wants me to reach out personally in a letter and request a meeting as far as what the way forward is for that building or for the future. So I'm going to be doing that hopefully tomorrow if I have a minute to write a letter up. So I wanted to let you know that for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Because we want to move that along too.
Can you, is it possible for you to put, I can do that. So I should probably follow up with the historical district with that information because it was brought up during that meeting.
Oh, yes.
That's where it came from. So,
Okay.
Okay.
And then the last bit before I know Director Plabani wants to say something as well. The last bit is, I don't know if you guys have been following, I don't know if commissioners have been following, but we've been flying a senior planner / division director for the planning division because not sure if everybody's aware, but we did rebrand ourselves. We're community development department now, not building and planning anymore. So we actually have a planning division now instead of a planning department. It's actually a division in community development now. And the CAO authorized me to hire a senior planner / division director. So more money, more experiences involved, obviously, but that closes next week on the 18th. And hopefully we'll get a whole bunch of really great candidates and we'll have somebody that's going to be, I would say, in the know in Trinity County about what goes on here, or even not even going that far, but at least CEQA related California, understanding the way things go in California as it is different from other states sometimes. And
I have a question before we turn it over to Director Plabani. So what's the status of the subdivision review committee? Is that gone back to the Board of Supervisors for appointment from the Fire Chiefs Association?
the last I heard was that the request had went to county council on whether or not we could have two from the fire chief. I had not heard a response back on that. I didn't know if you had.
No, I haven't. And I would appreciate it if you could check with
Yeah.
council again. I saw that you had tried to follow up and I don't believe we had gotten a response, but
I'll talk to the CAO tomorrow about that to bump.
because
that.
if we can get a response from council, then we can agenda that for the Board of Supervisors so they can make that appointment and then we would have a full subdivision review committee. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, yep, definitely.
Just wanted to take a moment to kind of acknowledge that we had a significant amount of discussion related to the opt-out process or lack thereof tonight. And so digging into these topics and kind of what petitions we had on file at the directive of CAO Tuthill, I guess what I'm hoping to encourage you all, based on my understanding of the previous process, was that it was pretty much a board members sponsoring.
Mhm.
So I would, encourage you all to reach out to your supervisors and really push them on this topic if you want to see a specific process established that will then sort of take this out of the ambiguous area and lack of process that we've been stuck in. So that was really it. It's not an established process. There's no established application or criteria. And so it really, my take on it is that historically, a board member said, I want to champion this cause, and that's how they got it to the board. So
Good to know.
Yeah.
That's a good one for you, Todd, because those people are all your constituents. So have fun with that.
Supervisor Fraser.
Yeah.
Okay.
The funny
um,
thing is, those are all his relatives.
I saw that.
Any further planning director's report? No? Then we will adjourn the meeting at 9:52 PM.
Specifically his mother.
His mother.
I said specifically his mother.
She's one of them.
Yes, she is.